president of Harvard, I believe, governor and senator from Pennsylvania, a great orator, and he spoke about the Battle of Gettysburg, the soldiers, the Pickett's charge up Cemetery Ridge, and how the Union Army defended it and pushed them back and won the battle, and people there were almost in tears. So good. And I sat there for almost 2 hours thinking, wow, he's good. What do I have here? Maybe 2.5 minutes? I didn't think my speech would scour. That was an old term we used back in Indiana, when the plow wouldn't turn the dirt. You just go down and run a little bit, wouldn't turn the dirt over. I didn't think it was scour. I didn't think it was going to do the trick, because he spoke for 2 hours and it was really good. I was impressed. But anyway, I couldn't change it then. It was my turn to come to the podium and speak to the crowd of maybe 12 to 15,000 there at Gettysburg. And so I think then I might have taken my glasses out so I could read my words correctly, so I might do that. So I looked at the crowd and I spoke these words to those people at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. November the 19th, 1863, somewhere around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceded liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on the great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do so. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather to be here dedicated to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And I stopped because that was the end, and silence. Everybody thought, well, there must be more. They just sat there waiting for more. And the photographers didn't have their cameras ready because it took them more than 2.5 minutes to get them ready. And finally they realized that must be it. And then I heard, beautiful applause, standing applause, and I got a bit of applause from them. But it was so short, they thought there should have been more. So I didn't really know. That's when I said to a friend of mine, I don't think this speech was scouted. I don't think it had it. But I guess it was not too bad after all, because it has endured for a long time. And everything I said there, I meant. The nation of the people, by the people, for the people. If we do that, we shall not perish from the earth. So when I come back to visit today, I find that the United States of America is still here. In all its glory, it's still here. Corinth, Ohio is still here. Waynesville, Ohio is still here. You're still here. What a great country. Now, from that point on, the war began to sort of go our way a little bit, with General Grant in command in Virginia began to force General Lee into submission after about a year or so. Cornered him at Appomattox Courthouse, and I think General Lee looked at his men and thought, this is it. I can't ask my men to fight one more battle. They were beleaguered, they were hungry. One of the factors in the war was food. The North, our northern soldiers had plenty of food most of the time. The southern soldiers did not a lot of the time. His soldiers were starving, they were hungry, Their uniforms were ripped and torn. They were bandaged. They were sick. They were weak. And he could not ask them to fight another battle. They would have, probably. But he said, that's it, Ben. I've done all I can do. And so he sent word to General Grant that he wanted to surrender on that day, April the 9th, 1865. And so those two great generals met there at Appomattox Courthouse, signed the papers of surrender. General Lee and his men left, went back home. The war was almost over. There were some more skirmishes in the South, and I think there was one battle fought later on in Texas out there. But basically, the main armies had stopped fighting because it was over. What a terrible war. We had made it through. We had kept the United States of America as one. Instead of being these United States of America, we have become the United States of America. One as one. And so after the war, after the end of there on April the 9th, Mary and I decided that we might like to have some recreation. And we always like to go to the theater. We've done that a few times during the war and before. And so we decided that we might like to go see a play called Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater. And I invited General Grant and his wife, Julia, to go. We thought maybe they might go. But they backed out. Quite honestly, I think they might have backed out because my wife and his wife didn't really get along too well. And so I think she persuaded General Grant that maybe it might not be a good thing to go. So we had another young couple to go with us, Major Rathbone and Miss Harris, who were going to be married shortly after that. And they went with us to Ford's Theater. We went to the theater that night, a little bit late, and came in and went upstairs and looked out over the railing up there, and somebody looked up and saw that we were there and pointed. Now, if somebody in this crowd would point to something outside the door, what would the rest of you do? Look out the door. Well, the rest of them there looked up and waved at them, and they started playing Hail to the Chief. The music you heard when I came in. And I gave him a little salute, waved at him. Thank you, thank you. Music was over. We sat down to enjoy the play until about a little bit after 10 o'clock. As they sometimes say, the rest is history. Thank you very much.